How about that cigar?
How about them Vikings? Cigar. Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Drew Estate Cigar Studios for episode 180 of How About That Cigar Live. Thank you so much for joining us, watching live on Facebook, live on YouTube. And for those of you listening after the fact on the audio podcast, thank you so much for listening to How About That Cigar Live. When you drive down the road, when you work out, whatever it is you do, when you listen to your favorite audio podcast, thank you so much for making How About That Cigar a part of it. And again, we are here in the beautiful Drew Estate Cigar Studios, and Drew Estate joined by James Hetfield of Metallica and Rob Dietrich of Blackened American Whiskey just unveiled the all-new Blackened Cigars M81 by Drew Estate, an exploration into the deepest Maduro leaf. Blackened Cigars M81 by Drew Estate presents a journey through different Maduro leaves, starting with a thick and oily San Andreas Maduro wrapper, followed by a thick and meaty Connecticut River Valley broadleaf Maduro binder, and finally a blend of Nicaraguan and Pennsylvania broadleaf Maduro tobaccos. Blackened Cigars M81 by Drew Estate will be presented in beautiful copper-accented black 20-count boxes and debut in a 5x50 Robusto, a 6x52 Toro, 7x50 Corona Doble, and a 5x43 Corona. For more information, please visit drewestate.com. So, as Garrett mentioned in the intro, the Minnesota Vikings, and you guys know, y'all know if you watch the show regularly, you know that Garrett is a huge Minnesota Vikings fan. I'm a huge Green Bay Packers fan. And that Vikings-Bills game yesterday was one of the most entertaining football games I maybe have ever seen, at least in the last few years.
As soon as my blood pressure medicine kicked in, it was enjoyable. That game was insane. And I left your house, was it the night before last? On Saturday night. And I was like, well, we're playing the Bills tomorrow, so that'll suck. And it
was a back and forth.
Man,
I mean, so seeing two of the best at their position, Stephon Diggs and Justin Jefferson, against each other. I mean, not against each other, but
right. Yeah.
It was great to watch. Both of them had some crazy great catches. Justin Jefferson had himself a day.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, what was 193 yards. And Singletary had 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
And Kirk Cousins looks pretty good. I mean, he made, a couple mistakes.
He made 2 throws he had no business making. But so did Josh Allen.
Yeah.
2 throws that he had no business in the last one that obviously he threw ended the game.
Yeah, it was. It was. Thank you, Coop. Thank you, Coop. Matt LaFleur for Coach of the Year.
So I want to say, as impressive as it was for the Vikings to beat the Bills, I will say it's more impressive that the Packers beat Dallas.
I don't think because the Vikings had to have a statement game this season. And the only way they were going to have that was to beat one of the other top teams in the NFL. And the Bills were that team. And playing away at the Bills home stadium, that was for the Packers to beat the Dallas Cowboys at home.
In the current state of events.
But yes. So I understand that as poorly as the Packers have been playing for the last 6 weeks, it's been absolutely terrible. And for them to, beat Dallas at home, it was a eked out win. It was they barely made it, but they did make it. A win is a win, but the Packers have to improve on that and just keep pushing forward. The good thing is in the final, I think because the Vikings have already had their bye and the Packers haven't yet. The Packers don't have their bye till week 14.
Really?
Yeah. Super late bye for the Packers. So the Packers have 7 games left, and I believe 5 of those are at home, I think.
Wow.
But the Vikings have a pretty other than Philadelphia and Philadelphia, the Giants, and
We've already played Philadelphia.
you did?
That's our one loss.
Oh, right. Yeah. So who else? Oh, we have the Green Bay has
You have
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Yeah. Good luck with that. But the Vikings have, from what I remember seeing, not a horribly difficult schedule for the rest of the way.
No, I think the NFC North is pretty locked up. The playoff picture obviously will run through Philadelphia, which,
well, maybe. I mean, unless they just fall apart, but signs aren't pointing that.
No, Jalen Hurts
he's playing well. Honestly, the whole team's playing.
Star.
The defense is playing really well too. And as far as the Minnesota Wild goes, they are getting better. They're at 500 now.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a 500 team. They've been improving yesterday, notwithstanding. But things are looking up. I think it's early. We just have to, keep supporting them and, seeing where the season goes.
Yeah.
But exciting football yesterday all the way around. So nice to be a part of that and just as fans, and be able to watch.
Yes.
But man, we have a very exciting show tonight, guys, and a great special guest who's returning to How About That Cigar Live for the first time in a long time. It's been a while, but he's he's a very exciting guest and somebody that we can always learn a lot from. So let's bring on our special guest of the evening. And as always on How About That Cigar Live, special guests are brought to us by our friends at Corona Cigar Company. Corona Cigar Company and coronacigar.com, the internet's largest and easiest to use virtual cigar store. Corona Cigar Company offers the finest handmade cigars, humidors, and cigar accessories at the absolute lowest possible price. You'll also find unique and limited cigars made with Florida sun-grown tobacco. As a proud American, president and founder of Corona Cigar Company, Jeff Borshowitz knew it was possible to bring cigar tobacco farming back to Florida. At Corona Cigar Company, you'll find the best selection anywhere in the world of cigars containing this special Florida sun-grown tobacco. If you live in Florida or are just visiting, be sure to visit any of the great Corona Cigar locations in downtown Orlando, Sand Lake, Tampa, Lake Mary, and a new location coming soon to Sarasota. To learn more, visit coronacigar.com and floridasungrown.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you would please join us and put your hands together. Welcome to How About That Cigar Live from Two Guys Cigars and the Cigar Authority podcast. Please welcome Mr. Dave Garofalo. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt and Garrett, and most importantly, Justin behind the scenes for getting me on this thing. We had a whole 15 seconds left over.
We did.
Trying to get this old guy to make this work by myself. That's why I have a Justin. His name's Ed Sullivan, and he tells, okay, this is how you do it, and I'm on. So good for you guys to have a real producer.
No, Justin is the glue that holds this podcast together.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I get it.
So I look back at the first time we had you on the show. This is your second appearance on How About That Cigar Live. The first time, so this is episode right now, it's episode 180. And the first time you were on the show was way back at episode 56, April of 2020. So we were in the midst of lockdown torture in the world. So give us a picture of how everything's going now that it seems like the world is back to sanity and regular operations again.
Well, those were the worst of times, that's for sure. April 2020, full panic mode. We had been shut down for probably 40 days at that point, not allowing people in the store and doing this curbside thing that never really worked out well at all. And we were tanking. My God, it was bad. But about 60 days into it, the governor of New Hampshire said, okay, you can start going into stores, but you got to stay 6 feet away from each person. Everybody's got to wear a mask. All that shit happened. Thank God, though, they let people in the store. And I can't believe what happened, which was not only did business come back strong, but it came back so strong, we made up for being closed for 2 months. how is that even possible that happened? Which was the second cigar boom I've ever been into as a retailer. I lived through the 90s and a cigar boom then. And then there was this COVID cigar boom that was altogether different, but just as exciting that this came back. No way were we going to make our numbers for 2020. And not only we did, we succeeded it so much so. And 2021 was even better than that. So wacky what happened since the last time I have been on. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about science on the show,
Ooh.
which seems a little strange for a cigar show.
No.
And trust me, I'll
love it.
explain in just a second after I light up my cigar.
All right. When lighting your cigar, it is important to be patient, pay close attention to detail, and focus on the tobacco. In the same way, Steve Saka brings those same qualities to the ultra-premium cigars of Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Patience, close attention, and focus on the tobacco are the qualities that Saka and Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust have become known for. From Sober Mesa to Umbagog, Dunbarton has a blend that will fit your palate, your mood, and any occasion. Visit dunbartoncigars.com to learn more. All right, Dave, what are you smoking and or drinking this evening?
I am smoking La Mezcla Cubana, a value cigar brand. Just happen to have it here. I have a few things handy, but that's the one I went up to first. And as boring as I am, what is today? Today is Monday. So
Monday.
I just have water.
That is what we pregame.
Hey, it is.
Yeah, that was our pregame smoke.
No kidding. Okay, I like it. I like it for a $6 cigar, man.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
It's a.
No, it was absolutely a decent cigar.
What have you have fired up?
I have the United Maduro Robusto.
Yeah,
There we
and
go.
I've got the Abuelo.
Ah,
that I just fired up.
grandfather. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
So as I mentioned, tonight's show is about science. And one of the biggest, scientific topics, that over the last, I'd say 150 years is the
Flat Earth.
is the flat Earth. Exactly. You nailed it. It's the study of the theory of evolution.
Okay.
Charles Darwin. You might have heard of him.
Chuck.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
I know
have.
Chuck.
Chuck. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. You guys are on like the nickname basis.
I like this.
Yeah. And so one of the things about evolution is everything evolves. And one of the things that has evolved over the years is the world of premium cigars. And there are a lot of different facets as Dave, being a retailer, being a podcaster, being somebody who's been very active in the cigar legislative community, being somebody who has a stake in cigar brands. You know a lot of different facets of the cigar industry, and all of them have evolved over the years. Even back before any of us were even acquainted with the premium cigar industry. And the first evolution part, I want to focus on two of them tonight. One is the evolution of cigar media, and the other is the evolution of the brick and mortar cigar shop over the years. And even going back to starting at the days before we even knew what cigars were, back before we were even little kids. So when we're talking about the evolution of cigar media, we know cigar media now as there's podcasts, there's web shows, there's websites, reviewers, Instagram influencers, people on TikTok, people on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all these different things now. But back long ago, I mean, even going back into the 19th century, cigar media was a lot different. It was, print. You had your print media.
Well, I would go out on a limb and say there was nothing in the 19th century.
There was the 18th. The
20th.
No, well, even 19th century.
1800s.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yep. So I did find some examples of some articles from some newspapers, United States newspapers, and they weren't ads for cigar brands. They were ads from local general stores local
Okay.
drugstores.
Okay.
Saying stop in for all your daily needs.
Mm-hmm.
You can stop in and pick up your medications, stop in and pick up your foodstuffs, and pick up your cigars. We have all the cigars you want. We have the pipe tobacco you want. Stop in and see us. So
Dave, do you remember those as a young child?
I do remember the candy shops in New York, especially. Candy store sold tobacco, and you'd buy cigars in candy shops, which isn't that the weirdest thing now to even consider that would be a thing? But that's where you would get your cigars. That in drugstores, and when you went to the tobacconist or smoke shop at that time, I'll tell you in 1985 that we didn't carry the brands that the drugstores carried. So someone came in looking for those brands. I would say, oh, those are the drugstore cigars. We have a finer selection here. So ours was hopefully better than theirs were. We certainly had something unique, which was a humidor, where the drugstores actually kept it right on the counter, in the aisles. Everything was right there. So that was part of the thing too. But back 1800s, some general stores, I guess that's how it would be, right? A general store to have generally everything.
Yeah.
But even in the 80s, Dave, were there different channels? So you had your drugstores, as you mentioned they would get their cigars and your cigar shop. So in the 80s, as a tobacconist, was that industry considered the premium cigar industry, and the stuff in the general stores and drugstores, was that your typical machine made type cigars, really ordering from two different places, two different demographics? Is that what we're looking at?
They weren't ordering from different places. We were all ordering from the same place, and it wasn't from the manufacturer. You would buy from a wholesaler or a jobber, they would call it, and they would have multiple of these jobbers in major cities, and you would buy from them. It was, you had to do some serious volume to build up enough credit to a manufacturer to deal with you direct. It just really wasn't happening early on. I remember calling the reps in, calling the cigar companies in, say, I want to open direct with you in the 80s, and they'd send somebody down, and the guy would say, you need to order 2,500 of one thing, if that's what you want, 2,500 sticks.
Yeah.
So it's basically, 100 boxes of whatever size of whatever thing you were looking for. And wow, that was too much. That was too much. It was as sales went down, and let me tell you, the 80s was the worst time in the cigar industry. That's when I got in. I didn't know it, but sales have been dropping every single year, from the late 60s, early 70s, all the way down. And I get in 85, and even the cigar companies are saying, hey, kid, you got in here way too late. It's over. And as luck would have it, 1990 comes along, and it spins upwards. But the name of my cigar shop is Two Guys Smoke Shop. And the reason why it's Two Guys Smoke Shop is there was no cigar shops. Everybody was a smoke shop or a tobacconist carrying everything. And even going to the trade shows in those days, it wasn't just cigars that were at the IPCPR trade show, or RTDA in that day, Retail Tobacco Dealers Association. And we would go there, and there would be walking canes, and there'd be chess sets, and there'd be lots of pipe tobacco. You had a better shot of finding a pipe store than a cigar store. It was unheard of. And it was the cigar boom that changed that. In the 90s, when cigars got popular and new cigar companies came in, they offered a decent margin for the retailer to be able to survive on selling cigars. Before that, it was just the margins were so low that you would have to just sell other things. Somebody would come in for a box of cigars, and you hope they bought something else that you can make a profit. So that turned around in the 90s. But the 80s, it certainly wasn't easy. And I do remember the drugstore chains having things on the shelf, premium cigars on the shelf also. And I would try to stay away from the sizes that they stayed, but they would sell, you could buy a whole box of Macanudo on the shelf at Walgreens or whatever the drugstore chain was, Rexall and all the different things in those days. And, I would say to my customer that, taste mine, it's fresher, it's, humidified, it's kept in a perfect climate controlled environment. And we would, say all those things to get somebody to change up. As far as a box of Phillies or Garcia Vega, have a Tampa and the different domestic cigars, and we carry those too. We'd have them in little 5-packs or whole boxes of 50. And it was the same stuff that was in the drugstore chain. And, it was hard to compete against them. We were making very, very little profit anyway on it. So again, I hope you came in and bought a cup of coffee or a magazine or a newspaper, those things that made a paper that they used to have in the stores.
Yeah.
It seems like, to me, it seems like yesterday, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, and going side by side with the evolution, I mean, going back to the late 1800s into the early 1900s, as far as cigar media goes, there were just, ads for local shops. And as far as retailers go, back then, because cigars and pipe tobacco were available at most 5 and dimes, drugstores, general stores, in your towns. And there were also little, in most towns back then, there were small cigar factories that, they'd get tobacco and they'd roll a bunch of little cigars and sell them to, their local 5 and dimes and saloons and things like that. And then as you get into the sort of the mid 20th century, into the, let's say we get into the 1950s and 60s, then you start to see more and more tobacco regulations across the country. You start to see first thing to go as far as media goes was tobacco advertisements started to go away. They weren't able to advertise cigarettes at one point. I do remember when I was young, there were still television ads for smokeless tobacco and for cigars. So there were still Dutch Masters commercials, and the commercials for the commercials didn't call them Garcia Vega, they called them Garcia Vega on the TV commercial. And but then those went away, I want to say somewhere around 81 or 82.
Well, I remember I had a subscription to Hot Rod magazine.
That's the car magazine?
The car magazine.
Okay, just making sure.
Yes.
Making sure.
Yeah. It's a different thing now. But in that Hot Rod magazine, every issue, guess what was in the center?
The cigar ad?
No.
I don't know.
It was pouches of Skoal Bandits.
Wow. Like
inside.
Actual
tobacco product in the magazine. Wow, that's never.
I can't recall when that stopped, but I remember when that magazine would come, before I could get it, my mom would always rip out that pouch that had, I think it had 2 or 3, whatever, of the little Skoal Bandits.
Wow.
In there.
Never would that happen today. Ever.
Oh my gosh. No. Can you imagine?
People would be in jail if that happened today.
You got my son addicted to crack.
Well, right. So Dave, a couple months ago, we had George Brightman on the show, and he was involved with Cigar Aficionado early on. And one of the things we asked him was, what was there for cigar media? Because this was obviously before the days of the internet. So we asked him, before Cigar Aficionado came along, what was there for magazines? And he said there were really just a couple trade publications from the RTDA, and one guy who was also in the porn business tried to do a cigar magazine and only made it like 3 or 4 issues in, and it failed. And that was pretty much it. So what do you remember anything from before Cigar Aficionado as far as Aside from when they started taking, commercials off TV and radio, do you remember anything print wise or anything else from like 80s or 70s?
Yeah, there were Tobacconist magazine, trade publication that existed, and we would get that, I believe, every month, Tobacconist magazine. Then its competitor that came out, there was Smoke Shop magazine, and then there was competition, and it would be industry stuff, but also advertising a brand that you maybe didn't hear about. And the Tobacconist magazine, the RTDA, got behind that. And later, Smoke Shop magazine, when Cigar Aficionado came out, created a publication for the consumers called Smoke Magazine. That was the second publication to come out. And they might have come out a year or so after Cigar Aficionado did. And I do remember that magazine, if that's what you want to call it, of can't remember the guy's name. That was the porn guy, but it was a newspaper. It wasn't
Al Goldstein.
Who was it?
Al Goldstein.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a newsletter, a quarterly newsletter or something.
It was a newspaper. It was a newspaper. Yeah. So was his porn magazine, was made of newspaper, and that's what he did for that too. And I don't know if there was going to be any hope for that when it came out. I saw it. We didn't carry it or anything like that, but being in the business, I looked at it, and it was newspaper print, and I'm like, it actually, and the person owning it and everything did not shed a great light onto cigars. It wasn't until Cigar Aficionado came out, and it was, oh my God, what a difference that was, that it was high gloss. It looked really high end and sophisticated, more sophisticated than the cigar industry. I'm like, oh my God, does this look as good? I'm gonna have to wear a tie to work. What the hell's going on here? And literally changed everything. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And George Brightman is the perfect guy. I mean, without George Brightman, I don't know how it would have came out, because he was a retailer himself. He was deep into the cigar industry, and they got some good advice from George Brightman when that came out. So it came out right. People that work for magazines, they go to school for literature and for writing, and not necessarily do they know the subject as well as somebody else, but boy, they can make it sound really good. I remember that issue 1 came out, and it was at the trade show we were at, and they gave it to all of us at the trade show, and it was a big deal. There was a big breakfast, and oh my God, this thing, I'm walking down the aisles of the trade show, flicking through the magazine. I just can't believe what I'm looking at, that this is this going to change our industry? And you just knew it was then. Yeah. And when people started coming in the store after that, they would have the magazine in their hand, or they would have a list, or they would start asking questions and mentioning flavor notes. None of this stuff happened before, never. A customer came in and said what they wanted, and that was it. And everything changed at that point. The demographics changed. I mean, it was crazy. Was there a little bit happening before that happened? Yes, there was, because why would they want to put a publication out? Probably about 2 years before that, 1990, we started seeing changes about people talking about cigars in TV shows and in movies. And you'd have Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone. On TV, it was Jerry Seinfeld, the A-Team. All these people showing cigars. And here I am in the cigar business watching these things and looking to see what kind of cigar are they smoking. And all of a sudden, younger people started coming in and seeing this and saying, I'd like to try a cigar. How do you do it? That never happened, that people used to come in the store and say, how do you do it? And then, asking advice. And the tobacconist at that point became the expert. And it was nonstop, the same question over and over and over of how to cut, light, smoke. Do I inhale? How do I do this? I used to be a cigarette smoker. What do I do? Game-changing thing that ended up happening there. The early 60s, there was a boom in the cigar industry. You brought up that they were Surgeon General saying that cigarettes are no good for you, and all this is happening. And early 70s comes no advertising for cigarette products. So cigars got popular, actually. Things like Winchester Little Cigars, really big at that time. And a lot of companies bringing out little cigars instead of cigarettes, major growth. And then that starts tanking down, and it goes down really hard through the 80s. And then all of a sudden, I believe it was a big part of it was, when you talk about media, it was the media. It was TV shows and movies.
Yeah.
And some of which, by the way, was pay to play. That a cigar brand would actually give the product to the TV studio or to the movie studio for consideration of using the product on there. It wasn't very deliberate, in other words, showing the brand or anything, close up or anything like that. But you could see what it was. If you were deep into the cigar industry,
Yeah.
you'd see what they're smoking and say, oh my God, that's it. I don't know. I still do that to this day. If I see somebody on TV smoking and, freeze frame it or whatever and look to see what it is, that would, in those days, there wasn't a click of the freeze frame or anything, but just looking at that and say, I think that was a Tiamo the guy was smoking. No, I think it was a Partagas. And, even coming to work in the store, somebody would come in and say, hey, did you watch such and such last night? Johnny Carson, his guest came on with a cigar. What was he smoking? These things would happen, and it snowballed. Even women getting into it. Madonna was smoking cigars, and it was all kinds of different movie stars, male and female, were getting into it. And boom, there's the beginning of the boom. And I wish it lasted longer, but everybody talks about this boom. It was maybe about 7 years long.
Yeah.
And but as bad as it was when it stopped, it was still way above where it started. It was
absolutely.
really down in the pits. We were at about maybe 100 million, 180 million cigars. It goes into 500 million, 600 million cigars, and then drops to 350 million. Oh my God, it fell apart. Oh, it was 150. I'm happy with 350. Was sensational. And I think we're seeing the same thing actually right now. I think the COVID boom is over. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to settle down, but it's going to settle down above what it did before, if history proves itself correct the way it did last time.
Yeah. And then if we go back to around the same time that Cigar Aficionado launched in 1992, there were also, although they, not all of them were really official or shows on the radio that were just about cigars, but one of them was that I can recall, although I don't think it goes back this far. But so you go back to 1992, and if we're talking radio, there were some radio personalities that at least talked a fairly regular amount about their cigar consumption.
WKRP in Cincinnati?
No. Well, although that was one of my
I don't remember that. Yeah.
But Rush Limbaugh was one that I can think of that talked a lot about his cigar smoking. I don't know when the Cigar Dave show started. I don't think it was 30 years ago, but it was a while ago. And
Close.
He was kind of half and half politics and cigars. And there were others. I mean, a local guy, Joe Souchere, was a big cigar guy here in the Minneapolis St. Paul radio market. And so the radio got into the game a little bit, even back in the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, there was. So you had Cigar Dave. I think early on they started in New York. Then he went down to Tampa, Florida, and he was there in the, I'd say, early 90s. Maybe by 94 or something, he was off and running. You had another guy, Rick something, out of California, that was doing his thing. But remember, radio wasn't national. It was these pockets that they had advertising. And what Cigar Dave did is he started not only broadcasting out of Tampa when he was there, but he would buy advertising time in different other pockets also. So he got himself, he created himself this little broadcast thing going on where he was syndicated.
Syndication.
Because he created it himself. So he was a real broadcaster anyway. He was a real radio guy, as most of them were, like you said. He didn't get into it because of the cigar industry, but he said, okay, here's a little pocket of people that might be interested. And his thing was and still is, I think he's on podcasting now, but he, as far as I'm concerned, he was the godfather out there to actually pull it off and make it happen, and kept it going for years and years and years. So it's all good for the cigar industry, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
When you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier when you had said, you know, in the 80s, people, for the most part, you didn't have a whole lot of new people coming in looking to get into cigars. And that kind of takes me back to my first cigar, if you will, was a Antonio Cleopatra. It's because what my dad smoked, and we would smoke them hunting and fishing, and I would go to my pharmacy and buy, you know, the Antonio,
the yellow box, the Grenadiers.
Yellow box of Grenadiers. That's right.
Yeah.
And so
Grenadiers.
Dave, can you take us through the strategy from a tobacconist in those early days of the 80s to, you know, is there a correlation between when media becomes present in the cigar industry and changing how that consumer then approached either getting into the hobby or approached cigars in general? And then what the effect of the tobacconist was?
Well, it certainly was the internet, and that dramatically changed stuff, because now we're talking to people that are really into this thing all over the nation. And I was introduced to a cigar group called alt.smokers.cigars, ASC. And this was in the, I would say, maybe 94. And I met a man named Steve Saka on there. I met another guy called Ed Sullivan. He's now our producer on the Cigar Authority. Cigar Craig, he was another one that's still out there today doing a blog. Myself and a bunch of other people. I can't remember any names that are still relevant today, but those four people for sure. And it was you'd write it out, and everybody would be asking questions of each other, and we didn't know who these people are, and it was you know, some people use their real name, some people just use the handle, like a CB radio type of thing at that time. I said who I was, and I hoped I would possibly gain customers from it. I did. Ed Sullivan became my customer. Steve Saka became my customer in '94. And I would let them know when, you know, something rare came in. At that time, La Gloria Cubana was a hard-to-get cigar. I luckily had carried it early on before Cigar Aficionado came out and gave it a big rating for a $1.85 cigar. $1.85, by the way.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, writing on there and saying, just so you know, I got a bunch of these in. If anybody wants them, here's my phone number. This was the beginning of online sales. Here's my phone number. Well, the first thing that happened is they tore me apart, because here I was advertising myself on there. And I'll give Steve Saka credit. Steve Saka said, hey, he can sell every one of these he wants. He's giving us an opportunity to. He's here promoting something that the next guy that walks in the store will buy. So don't beat him up for him. He just thinks he's trying to do something nice, which I was doing something nice. And but they were bashing me all day long on there. And I was like, oh, I can't even go on this anymore. And at the end of the day, the phone rings and it's Steve Saka. And I said, oh my God, I said, I'm getting destroyed on there. And he goes, let me ask you a question. I said, yeah. He said, did you sell them all? And I said, yeah. He goes, all right, good. See you later. And that was it. True story.
Oh, I love it.
That's called spam. I might have been the original first spam guy. I didn't know it. I didn't know I was doing something wrong. But that group was awesome. And I'll tell you, I remember going home and I just couldn't wait to get on the computer again we didn't have phones with computers on them. You go on a big computer and go on there and see what everybody's asking and talking about, and they'd mention a cigar brand I never heard of, and I'd write it down, and I'd be learning from the consumer all across the country and sometimes all across the world of these people where they were. That was the first thing I saw, and from there it evolves into a chat group, which was the Cigar Family chat group.
Yep.
That Drew Newman put this together. He was 8 years old, and he told his father and mother that they need to do this. Drew Newman, who's in charge of J.C. Newman today, he was 8 years old, and he put this thing together and made it work. And now it was people from everywhere. And again, this was controlled by the Newman family for them and Fuente, but they had the smart idea to allow anybody to talk about anything they wanted. So it wasn't just talking about their brand. So it didn't look like a commercial product that was there just for that. There was a lot of it, of course, but you could talk about any brand you want, talk about whatever. So they opened up different rooms and all this where you'd start chatting. I don't know if this is even still available anymore, but it was Cigar Family that happened. And this is before there was vocal, before you could speak about it. This is people talking about it, and that stems the beginning of blogs.
Yeah.
And then people would have this blog that would be out there, and you'd go onto, for instance, acigarsmoker.com. That was Barry Stein. He was one of the first ones. Barry does the Cigar Authority with us also.
Yeah.
And he would write reviews and talk about news that was happening in the cigar industry. And I didn't know him, who he was or anything, but I'd go on there, and again, as a retailer, let me see what I can learn. And he's talking about a brand I never heard of. And then I jot that down. Okay, how do I not know about this? I think this was the beginning. The blogger was the beginning of the really boutique brands at that point, because that's what they were talking about. People that they maybe could not go see Fuente or somebody like that, but they certainly could see a smaller brand. In those days, Tony Bahani from Bahia or early Rocky Patel, folks like that would engage with them as a consumer, and they could, get some information out of them. So that was the next step before any verbal thing was coming out with such like podcasting. It was reading these things. I just attached to the podcasting pod because I thought it was easier and pretty one way, as opposed to having to put something down and wait for somebody. Sometimes your answer takes 3 days to get to before somebody gets to that thing, and but it's all good. It's all good. The first podcast I heard of was Stogie Fresh 5. David Diaz.
Yep.
Diaz. And that went on for years. Yeah, that went on for years and years. And I had the pleasure to meet him at a trade show before I went there, before he stopped doing it. And there's passion, just like the blogger, passion from consumers, and passion from consumers on the blogging and doing the on the chat boxes also. There actually wasn't a lot of me, somebody that was in the cigar industry, tagging along. I lurked in the background a lot of times and wanted to go in there and to learn. But when I saw something somebody asked and I had the answer to, I would say it. Or when I was trying to sell the Gloria Cubanas, I said it. But then I started getting scared of it, to be honest with you, as they would say that there'd be rules all of a sudden that you can't do this and you can't do that because of people like me. This guy's going to go in and try to sell. And really, I was there because I wanted to learn. And, it seems odd, learn from the consumer, but that's what I've been doing my whole life, is learn from the consumer. My job is easy. I try to give the consumer what they want, and getting to sneak in and listen to them talk with each other gives you the answers that you're looking for, right? So that was it.
Well, and now going into kind of the true modern era, say that goes from current day back probably about at least 10, probably more like 13 or 15 years, is YouTube. And there's the early days of cigars on YouTube, things like Cigar Obsession and Stogie Geeks, and Cigar Dojo is just getting into their 10th anniversary. And you guys got Cigar Authority on YouTube pretty relatively early on, from what I recall.
2010.
Yeah, so 12 years ago.
And so I thought where we were doing a podcast, why not use everything we could possibly do to it? Part of it was, who the hell wants to see this? That here's a guy sitting here talking about cigars, and you can see what I look like. Is this going to hurt the cigar brand of, it's not, I'm not a cool kid and I'm not fancy dresser, I'm not whatever. But listen, if I pick up a listener here, but the whole idea of that show was for it to be audio, and like radio, like Cigar Dave, let this be a radio show. But YouTube is sitting there. How can I not put it on there also? So I do. Facebook, I do. But still to this day, 12 years into the Cigar Authority, it's still an audio podcast by far. 95%. Ed Sullivan would know the numbers right off the top of his head, but it's in the 90 percentile of listeners instead of watchers. You're doing this while you're doing something else. We may be different than you because you have a show that's on at nighttime when it's downtime for people. Mine is a Saturday afternoon at 12 noon show. And this is when people got their honey to-do lists and there's other things to do, and it's a beautiful day. And, you can stay here and end up watching a computer for 2 hours, which is insane also. Mistake on my part. I didn't know how long a podcast should be back in those days. And I locked in the 2 hours, and here we are still after all this time. But it is, it's an audio podcast to accomplish a couple of things. I'm trying to educate, but I was a bad student myself in school. And partly is because I didn't like school. I wasn't good at it. And I didn't have very many good teachers that could do it the way I think it should be done, which is it should be education, but at the same time, it has to be informative and entertaining at the same time to keep, especially a young person engaged as a child, that a really good teacher, and I remember a couple of them that I had was good, you'd have fun going to their class, and guess what would happen? You would learn something while you were at it. So the Cigar Authority's plan right from the go was to do that. Let's have some fun with them. I think your show was the same way. You guys goof off and have fun with each other and talk ball and different things. And we're going to sneak some education in there for you at the same time. And I think it's a perfect mix in the people that are doing that. Imagine the Cigar Authority 2 straight hours about just education of cigars. I don't think it would catch on. And I think, when we talked about Cigar Dave, and not to say anything negative, but especially nowadays with the politics, and then you get to a point where I don't want to hear politics anymore. And I stopped listening to Cigar Dave, not because of his cigar talk, but I didn't want to hear politics. And not to say I'm against the way he thinks at all, but it's on my off time. That's not what I want to do. Politics is part of my life. I'm in the cigar business. We're all into politics that has it. But to have some downtime and say, okay, let me get all frustrated and worked up again. It seems negative to it. That's all. And we try not to do it. Sometimes we get stuck in something bad is happening in the cigar industry, the FDA or something, and we do it. But we can tell our listeners drop off and they don't care. We got to try to squeeze it in when they don't know it,
Yeah. Well, and we're in the same boat as far as we do talk, little politics here and there, but we try to stick to CRA and PCA related legislative stuff. But always wrap it just like you guys do. Wrap it with a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of fun. But then in the last couple of years, especially, I mean, it was happening a little bit before the COVID lockdowns and things like that. But especially in the last 2.5, 3 years, we've seen a huge surge in live streaming, in virtual herfs, Instagram, and now this TikTok thing has become absolutely this massive juggernaut. And especially, I mean, the biggest one that I've seen is you've seen people who are cigar brand owners who are actually putting out their own, maybe weekly, maybe monthly live stream where they'll jump on Instagram maybe, or they'll jump on YouTube or Facebook and just talk about their brands, talk to their fans, talk to their customers, things like that. That's been huge in the last couple of years. And I'll be honest, I didn't really see it going back even 5 or 6 years. I didn't really see that it was going to become as big as it has.
COVID did it, and they all came out. Every single company came out with it, but a lot of them went away after it was time to go back to work. And having a conversation with a few of them after the fact is they realize it's a lot of work. And those that are listening, how about that Cigar isn't winging it? Just so you know, these guys have to do a lot of work to prep for a show. It is a lot of work that's happening in front of the screen as it's going live, but also behind the scenes of having a topic each week and have to be able to ask the next question and to know who your guest is. And I've been doing it, as I say now, 12 years now and getting ready. It makes you more intelligent about the subject, because in order for you to do the show, you have to study me, in this case, or Rick Rodriguez last week, or whoever it ends up being each time you do it, learn about their subject so you're intelligent about it. It's a lot of work. And after they have kind of blown their load, basically, of talking about their brands and themselves, what do you do after year 1, year 2, year 10, year 12 of continuing to come up with material? You guys are 5 years in now, 6 years in?
We're not even 4 yet. We're 3.5. All
right. It's not easier after 3.5. It's easier maybe for you to talk and you're not as maybe nervous as you were before, but to come up with the next subject matter, the next guest, try not to be as repetitive in all this. This is a lot of work, and these manufacturers realize that. And I don't think they stay for a long period of time, because unless they're going to start talking about other people's brands, and you see Carlito Fuente that does the Ask the Professor.
Yeah.
So they were smart to do that, because that show would have lasted 4 episodes. And after they talked about Fuente till they can't talk about Fuente anymore, but they bring people on from other manufacturers, and it makes it interesting that they end up doing that. But there's a lot of ego here in the industry. I don't see a lot of these manufacturers, and they're my friends out there, inviting their competitors into their place to promote their product. I don't see a lot of that happening. I don't think, but it certainly worked out for them.
Yeah.
Well, and also the social media group, especially Facebook. So pre-COVID, I was maybe in 3 or 4. Cigar
the groups,
cigar groups. COVID was a monster for all of these cigar groups. I mean, there was a period of time where I was being invited to 5 to 10 new cigar groups a day.
Yeah, it was insane.
It has gotten ridiculous. Now, most of them have gone by the wayside, thank the Lord, but
well, it's just too much to keep up with. It's like,
absolutely.
You can only have so many people in your life that you have a genuine engagement with, that you talk to on a regular basis, that you engage with on a regular basis. And the same is true with social media, with your virtual life. There's only so many groups that you can interact with on a regular basis and actually contribute something that people would either be encouraged by or be informed by or get a laugh from. There's just, if you were to accept an invite from every group you were invited to on Facebook and try to post on each of those groups once a day, that would be a full-time job.
Right.
It's just too much.
When I got into podcasting, I did that because my daughter said you should be in social media. You got to do on the social media thing. So she set up some social media for me, and I posted something. And then she says to me the next day, people are responding to you. You have to go on there and read it, and then you have to answer them. And I said, well, answer it for me. And she said, I can't answer these questions. You have to go look at it. So I end up doing it, and then I say something, and then they respond to it, and it isn't going to end. The conversation isn't going to end.
Exactly.
And I already posted something else, and I said, oh, my God, I have to go to work. I can't do this. There's no way I can possibly do this. And the only way was podcasting. I said, okay, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and people are chatting along. I can't follow the chat box while I can't think and read at the same time. I'm horrible. I know I am, but I have people for that now. So, you got Barry reading the stuff, and he's half as bad as me anyway. But reading it to see what somebody's saying on the chat box while somebody's producing it, and I'm saying what I'm supposed to say. But to do that and smoke a cigar at the same time, I know what I'm capable of. I'm not capable of it, so I have to refrain from that. But I can't answer everybody's questions on all these platforms. If I just went to one, of course, I could do it. And I'll carve out a half hour in the daytime and a half hour at night and get myself caught up. But there's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and then there's every group, like you say, that's on here, along with, I do the Cigar Authority. I do the Ash Holes on Tuesday. I do other people's podcasts. We do the after show. I have 3 cigar shops to run, an online business, along with a whole bunch of other stuff, and a family at the same time. And somebody's asking me, is the plume on their cigar mold or plume or whatever? And
Garrett's laughing because that's my most hated question. I hate that question. I hate that question.
And I've answered all of them before a bunch of times. So, what are you going to do? I'm not the best when it comes to. I applaud the people that really give it their all. And you've got some guys out there that are amazing on social media. It just can't be me. I work too much. Also, when somebody's a great golfer, for instance, I say you don't work very hard because it takes a lot of practice to be a good golfer. And there's no friggin' way you're a hard worker if you're really good at golf. There's no way it's happening. If you're really good at social media, you ain't working because it takes so much time. There's no way you can concentrate on your regular business. So, what do? You hire a social media person if that's the case. And people have come to me, I want to be a social media person. You're not gonna answer the right way I would want it to be answered. So I'd rather not be answered wrong. I trust my daughter to do it, but she said, I can't answer these questions for you. Well, I'm not going to just hire somebody and say, make everybody happy and say something nice or whatever. They're most likely asking a question. Somebody comes into the cigar shop and they ask a question. Absolutely, we're on top of it or whatever it is. And if I happen to see it, but I can't go on to Facebook all day and see if somebody's asking me a question. I can't do it. And those that can, please tell me how to manage my time better to be able to pull that off. I don't know.
Yeah, there's just too much. There's too much to keep track of on social media, and I love that there are cigar brands out there who are making the most of social media in a good way. They're engaging with their customers. They're promoting their products without being over the top. They're gracious about it. They're informative. They're kind. And Michael Herklotz just commented, and big shout out to Michael. He's one of our good friends, and he's one of those people he engages a lot on social media, but he does so to inform and to he's a positive influence when it comes to social media with regards to the cigar business.
Terrence Riley.
Riley's another one. Yeah.
Michael's a smart guy. As a matter of fact, when it comes to engaging with the people at TAA, which is a little organization for, say, 100 cigar retailers that are in this group, I used to do a thing called a Dream Machine, and I'd be on stage and engaging with the other retailers that are down there to try to get them to purchase more cigars for this Dream Machine deal thing that went on, and ask questions and try to make it entertaining at the same time. And I did a 6-year stint with TAA, and my time was up. And I had to step down, and they had to get somebody to take my spot of one of the duties, which was that. And I was scared. I was scared because they have to get somebody that can rally the troops to accomplish this goal for everybody that does it. And when I went the next year, I look on stage, and it was Michael Herklotz, and I took a breath of relief that it was him that was up there, and I go, oh my God, because he's better than me. And I can say the way it is because it is. He's better than me. And he got up there, and the way that works is it's a mass buy where everybody buys, and the discount goes to everybody if they reach these milestone things that happen. And here he was up there, and I'm like, oh my God, we're in good hands. And at that time, I guess Michael was a retailer. Through Nat Sherman, I guess, is how that ended up happening. And now he's a manufacturer. And I'll tell you, I was happy to see he's part of TAA also. So there's somebody engaging to an audience of retailers. And if he can do it to retailers, he certainly can do it to consumers. And he does. And, so hats off to him. Another one that's interesting to me is McAuliffe. McAuliffe, who does it, he was a relatively new company and somebody new to the cigar industry, but apparently his daughter put that together himself and decided to, okay, let's engage the consumer. And it's not, again, like I said, where it's going to be just my brand, that's all we're going to talk about, and you're going to get nothing else, and it's going to be, after 6 episodes of that, okay, what are we going to talk about now? They bring in everybody to it. And I'm a strong believer in that rising tides raise all ships. Yes. If you can make the cigar industry better, if you can concentrate on the cigar industry and move it up a notch, automatically everybody else is going to move up that notch too. And maybe you don't get a pat in the back for doing it, but you're going to have growth because of it. And if everybody could just do that and say, let's try to improve the people's thoughts on cigar smokers or something like that, it would turn over, because certainly the opposition does the opposite. They tell everybody how bad cigar smoking is, and they all get together and they're very strong believers in this, and they push the other direction. It seems like we as an industry has been too lazy on this and said, we're just worrying about our own business as opposed to all of our businesses. And we certainly have to make that change, I think, quickly, because we're losing ground here again. We got a little during COVID. We didn't get much pushback on it. The attention was somewhere else, and now that has gone away, all eyes are on the cigar industry or the tobacco industry again, and we're starting to see it. So we have to be careful, and we have to rally the troops and everybody get behind each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Well, we covered a little bit of the retail part of it. I want to save that for the next time we have you on How About That Cigar Live, because I think it's time. I mean, at least I think it's time. But I have to ask you, Garrett. Is it time?
I think it's time.
Are you sure?
It's time.
It is now time for this week's Numero de los Muertos. And as always, Numero de los Muertos is brought to us by our friends at Smoke Inn. All right, Numero de los Muertos, episode 180. Garrett, what do you have for us this week?
I've got another story one. So again, those who are using the Google, I implore you to not be spoilers.
Yeah, no, don't cheat and use Google. We're using our brains here instead of the Google box.
By the way, I can't believe how you guys get these. The other day, after 2 or 3 questions, you said guy jumped out of the Eiffel Tower with a parachute and died. After like 3 questions, I'm like, what the hell? How? I was nowhere. And so,
well,
how could that even happen?
After 180 episodes, you learn what questions to ask to get to the answer faster.
It's true.
Wow. Okay.
It's true. All right. The year is 1771.
Okay.
And this man in Sweden died from doing this.
One guy
in
1771.
Yep.
In Sweden.
Correct.
Died doing this.
Yep.
Okay. This one, we definitely have to keep you guys honest and keep you off of Google. Let's just ask and if you guys have, we're going to play 20 questions. So Dave, me, viewers, we're going to play 20 questions. So ask yes or no questions to try to get to the truth of this thing here. So I'll start out with, was it a workplace accident?
No.
Was he the only one that died of this?
Yes.
Ever?
No, I'm sure other people have done this. It would be rare.
Is this an activity that is
we have all done it.
Okay, so it's not an activity that's relegated just to Sweden.
Correct.
It's not a Swedish centric activity.
Nope.
So it's not like what do Swedish people do? Make meatballs,
right?
And furniture. Yeah. Oh, does it have to do with food? That's a great question.
Mm-hmm. It does.
It does. Okay, so we're on the right track. Overdose of hot chocolate. That's a great guess.
That is really good. No.
Does it have anything to do with meatballs?
Not really.
No.
No. Not drinking too much water. Not eating chocolate. So that would be the Swedish thing, I guess. Well, that's Switzerland. Yeah. Belgium. Yeah. Not eating fermented fish.
Oh, yuck.
That is a thing.
That is a thing that would kill me. I know it would kill me if I tried it.
Not
was he poisoned?
He was not poisoned.
He was not poisoned.
Not choked on a bone of a sardine.
Is it related to choking?
Mm-mm.
So not choking. Cooper.
Not lectins.
What are lectins?
Those are it's like
carbohydrates.
It's like it's a carb that's found in like peanuts and a lot of other things that
is it food or drink?
Food.
Is it animal or vegetable?
Yes.
What? It's both?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question, Mitchell. Is it a sweet food?
It's hard to answer. Sweet foods are involved.
Is it a food that today, because this was back in 1771, is it a food that you can find today readily just about
Everything
anywhere?
yes. Bacterial infection, no.
Is it at all related to infection or poisoning or foodborne illness?
No.
And it's also not related to choking.
Correct.
Is it related to the preparation of food?
No. All right, I'm gonna give it to Ash.
What?
Monty Python's skit was actually about this king. He is known as the king that ate himself to death. King
He exploded.
King Adolf Frederick, the king of Sweden, ate himself to death in 1771 after having a meal consisting of lobster, caviar, sauerkraut, cabbage soup, smoked herring, champagne, and 14 servings of his favorite dessert called Selma, a bread that is dipped in a bowl of hot milk.
And he exploded. He actually ruptured.
He ruptured internally, yes.
Oh,
It's wafer thin.
Would you like a wafer thin mint? Oh my gosh. The Monty Python skit was actually based on that?
Correct.
Better get a bucket.
I possibly could eat another bite.
Oh my God. I had no idea that was a real
I didn't either.
A real thing.
I didn't.
What was his name again?
King
The
Adolf Frederick.
King Adolf Frederick in 1771 ate himself to death.
Yep.
Oh.
And it's just a coincidence I'm on the show today, right?
That's right.
This wasn't a setup for me.
Dave, let's do a big fat guy thing. No.
I can relate. I can relate. So there is.
How often does this happen?
Yeah,
I mean, it's possible to eat yourself to death.
It has to have happened some other time, but he was notable because he was a king. He was famous.
Yeah, and so the reference that I get most of my stuff from either directly links to a CDC or WHO statistic. So there is an annual, and I didn't check the link to see what the global statistic on this is, but it has one. So
there's this is one of the Numero de los Muertos where there's a moral to the story. And that is pace yourself, people.
That's right.
When you feel full, stop eating. Take a break.
Yeah, you don't have to dunk your bread in the milk.
Go
14
have
times.
Go walk away from the dinner table and go have a fine cigar.
Yeah.
You ever see the hot dogs guys? They dunk their bread in the water, not milk.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and they haven't killed themselves because that's
most of them are actually pretty fit. Those eating champions.
They really are.
They're pretty fit. Yeah. I don't get that. I don't understand.
That Kobayashi guy?
There's got to be some purging going on later after those.
You think?
Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, have you seen that tiny little Asian girl on TikTok and YouTube?
Yeah.
She destroyed meals that look like way more than she does. I don't understand these people. But that gives me an idea for another Numero de los Muertos in the future.
Well, we'll keep our eyes open for that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was this week's Numero de los Muertos. All right, so now let's jump into the lightning round. The lightning round, always on How About That Cigar Live, brought to us by our friends at J.C. Newman Cigar Company. They are America's oldest family-owned premium cigar maker, creators of the popular Brick House, Perla Del Mar, Diamond Crown, and the American. J.C. Newman Cigar Company operates out of their 112-year-old El Reloj Cigar Factory in historic Cigar City, Tampa, Florida. For more information on their cigars or their visitor experience, please visit jcnewman.com. So, Dave, the last time we had you on the show, we had some early lightning round questions, but we got some fresh ones for you. So,
All right.
when you were a kid or a teenager, who was a celebrity that you had a big crush on?
Queen Elizabeth.
Can I go with Betty Rubble, or does it have to be a living person?
I love that.
Oh, that is such a great
Okay.
I
answer.
actually love that.
Oh,
All right, Betty Rubble, I'll go with. The Two Guys Smoke Shop. Do I have the logo here? I do.
yeah.
That cartoon that's there.
Yeah.
That is the Flintstones. There was a magazine out called Flintstone Vice, and they were like the Miami Vice, but they were the Flintstones. And I am Bonnie Rubble, and my brother there was Fred Flintstone. So I am Bonnie Rubble because of right next to my heart, Betty Rubble.
Very nice.
She was
Love
hot,
it.
right? She was
She
hot.
was so hot.
I was honestly, I was a
Yeah.
little more partial to Wilma.
Were you really?
Yeah, because
I was in the Betty.
Yeah,
I'm super into
redheads.
redheads,
Well,
but they were both.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not creepy at all. No.
No, I love it.
No,
I
that's
love it.
not.
Well, and I gotta say that's 2 cartoons in a row. Because
Oh,
last week
yeah.
we had Jessica Rabbit.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. So if you were suddenly a Betty Rubble until Rosie O'Donnell played her. Oh, Coop, that is a great that's a great comment. Betty Rubble until Rosie. I have to agree with you there.
Completely agree.
The cartoon.
Yeah,
Betty
the
Rubble,
cartoon.
the original.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So, Dave, if you were suddenly a billionaire, what would be the first extravagant, unnecessary thing you would spend some money on?
After you got the
private
house
jet.
and
Private jet.
okay.
The airplane travel is a disaster. I would love
Yeah.
the private jet, not to deal with that. I'm not an extravagant guy. I'm not a billionaire either, but I got money, but I don't have that kind of money for the private jet. And if I did, I would. So that is the definite answer.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave. The zombies are coming. You get 3 draft picks from the cigar industry to be on your zombie apocalypse team. Who do you pick from the cigar industry? 3 people.
3 people on my team. Zombies are coming. Okay, I have Nesta Miranda. Nesta Miranda is a hunter. He, if you've ever gone to his office, he's got all dead animals. The whole office is full of dead animals. They're hanging on the walls. They're everywhere. He has them all stuffed. He's a big game hunter, and that's what you need is a hunter. So I know he's up there in age, but he's still young at heart. He'd be okay. He's a good shot. He's got the stuff. He's a major pick. I'd go maybe Nick Perdomo. I think he's like the smartest guy in the cigar industry. Maybe he can figure a way to get around this or where to go. And they're both in Miami, so I could get to both of them quickly. And my boy Oliver Nouveau, because he knows how to get out of sticky situations. Crazy things have happened to him, and he manages to skate by without getting in trouble. So I think those 3, we got the firepower, we got the smarts, and if he can, and Oliver can get us out of the sticky situation, I'd be no help to any of them. So they'd be dragging my ass around, saving me. So I'm no help. Don't pick me.
But you'll bring all the cigars.
If I get the jet, if I get the private jet,
Yeah,
we got a
there you
main
go.
too.
Yes.
Love it. Great team.
And
That'd be a fun-
Nick may be able to fly it because he was an air traffic controller.
Oh, that's
I don't
right.
know if that makes it so he can fly a plane. I don't know.
I bet he could figure it out. He's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's move into this week's notable smokable and notable smokables on How About That Cigar Live, brought to us by Luciano Cigars. Notable passion, notable cigars, notable purpose. So Dave, each week, each of us name a cigar that we smoked recently that was notable to us. Now, it could be a cigar that's been on the market for decades that we just had for the first time in a long time, or it could be something that's brand new to the market that we tried for the first time ever. So what is something, Dave, that you've smoked recently that was notable to you?
You know, I'm digging, and I feel so bad for them. I think they were like the next big thing was the folks from Adventura. Their cigars, they're the ones that had the fire in the factory and it burned down.
Yeah.
We had them plan to come on the Cigar Authority a couple of weeks ago, and they had to cancel out. William Ventura, I've known the guy for a long, long time. He made cigars for me in the early 90s, a couple of different brands. He was with Davidoff before that, and his sons took over, and the unfortunate accident of that fire that ended up happening, my God, I would have bet they were going to be the next big thing. I just read in, I think it was Half Wheel yesterday, that they're rebuilding. They broke ground in
They just broke
Mochi's
ground.
area there, which was great to hear, but you're still a couple of years away. Those poor kids. It's a startup again, and but I'll tell you, it's happened to Padron, it happened to Fuente, it happened to some of the biggest names that get knocked down and they come back up. So hopefully it's them. They have a cigar, LL. I'm not going to be able to pronounce
La
the name.
Llorona.
Thank you. That's it. I thought that's the stuff they had at the trade show this year. I thought was great. The stuff that came out last year was great. I mean, these guys are really, they were firing on all cylinders. I said, they're going to be the next big thing. And I went to go see them in maybe August, and went and looked at what they had to offer, and sat and talked with them for a while. The kids, not the father. And I felt they were in good hands with the next generation that's there. And then that happens to them. I've been chain smoking their stuff, to be honest with you. Who knows when we're going to get it again, and it's good.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this. I talked to Henderson the day of the fire when it was still burning, and I've talked to him several times since. And the focus and the determination from Henderson and also Marcel and Nicole, who are in Switzerland, they are all about building back stronger and better than before. So there is no tail between the legs. There is no any of that. The passion is still there. And
Good.
Yeah. So they are luckily, as you mentioned, is Father William has a factory just up the road from where their factory was. So they're able to tread water right now, and they're treading water and able to supply majority of the retail partners with cigars and breaking ground. So yeah, I agree with you. I think they are one of the companies that are the next real big, legacy brand. And this may be that story that solidifies that for them, that they came from such adversity and conquered it. So, yeah, I love it. Great pick.
Garrett, what was your notable this week?
So I smoked, and Dave, I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It's for the European market, but it's a Nicaraguan cigar called Horatio. And it was super unique. It is made in Nicaragua in Esteli, and it has some Nicaraguan and Costa Rican tobacco in it. Super unique.
Not Hiroshi like Hiroshi.
Right.
Romania.
No, not Hiroshi. Horatio.
Okay.
Yep.
Horatio. Never heard of it.
And when we looked it up on Google, we could only find it in European shops.
Yeah. So certainly something not from the American, and the, you know, even the little where the SKU would be, it's all in euros and QR code.
Yeah.
You find the factory?
We couldn't find any factory info.
No.
Yeah. But it just says Esteli, Nicaragua. So we're not sure what factory even.
Yeah. Delicious cigar. So if anybody listening knows anything about that, I would love to know more.
Yeah. My notable this week was from 724 Cigars. And honestly, this was only the second, maybe third cigar I've smoked from that brand. And it's called the Hustler 5 and Dime. And I actually got this from Kurt Kendall at the trade show. And not the most recent trade show. I think I might have gotten this at PCA 2021. That's how long I've had this cigar. But it was a nice cigar. It was really powerful. Had some strength to it, really full flavored. It was one of those cigars that almost seems like it's got meatiness to it. It's had a really rich, thick, heavy texture to the smoke. And really, that was a bold cigar. So nice blend. I enjoyed that one.
Real quick.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
You
Dave.
didn't miss much of that brand, because that brand took 2 years to come out after he introduced it at the show for whatever was going on with that's Jesus Fuego that makes that cigar from the 5 and Dime. He's right up the street, not even 10 miles from here.
Okay.
Is there, and great cigar, by the way. And it was just COVID. You know, all kinds of packaging problems, and the bands and the boxes and all that stuff. So the cigar is actually good. You have that cigar and you aged it for a year and a half. But the good news is they're all aged a year and a half because they were all sitting there waiting for packaging. So the cigar is excellent, by the way. Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to turn this into a long rabbit hole at all. I know we're ending our show, but Dave, are you going to TPE? And also, what are your opinions on TPE as becoming almost a contender as the cigar trade show?
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I do go, and I will go this year again. And it's a great time of year. That it's January, February, and here we are in the cold winter up here. So it's great to get away. It's great to find a new product to bring in for the springtime and when the season. I'm receiving product now from the trade show, from the PCA trade show, and here we are at the slowdown of the season, and new product comes in, which is terrible. That one makes sense, but you know, they don't come out really packing with a lot of new product, although it was pretty good. And you can get through it in a day and a half or so and see everybody. And I wouldn't miss it. I go to it, and I don't think it's because it's competing in that market with the vape and the domestic cigars and the hookah and everything else that goes along with all that tobacco. It will not be the premium cigar industry's trade show. There's no way. I don't think they're even trying to be.
Yeah. That was this week's notable smokable.
My bad.
No, that's okay. Brought to us by Luciano Cigars, improving lives through fine cigars. Visit lucianocigars.com to learn more. So we have some coming attractions to let you guys know about on upcoming episodes, and those are brought to us by our friends at AJ Fernandez. Born and raised in Cuba, AJ Fernandez now produces unparalleled premium cigars in Esteli, Nicaragua. The AJ Fernandez portfolio of cigars provides blend strength and flavor profiles to match the preferences of any premium cigar consumer. Whether it's New World, Dias de Gloria, San Lotano, Enclave, or Bellas Artes, you are sure to be satisfied with a premium cigar from AJ Fernandez. So, coming up right away next Monday night on the 21st, we have none other than John Carney from LFD Cigars making another appearance on How About That Cigar Live. Then on the 28th of November, we have Tim Osgener from Osgener Family Cigars. On December 5th, we have Juan Lugo from Don Doroteo Cigars, a new up-and-coming cigar brand with a lot of great history behind it. And on the 12th, this is a big one. On the 12th, live here in Minnesota with us, Cigar Coop. William Cooper is going to be on the show. So he's going to be visiting Minnesota, and we're so excited to have him actually live here in the cold, frozen tundra. So looking forward to that. Dave, if you would please give our viewers and listeners an idea, where is the best place for them to keep up with everything you have going on, from Two Guys to Cigar Authority and everything else in between?
Two Guys, it was twoguyscigars.com, the Cigar Authority, thecigarauthority.com. You're best to get the podcast and listen to it, or else you're going to keep looking at this, and nobody wants to do that, not even Betty Rubble, right?
We'll keep looking at Betty Rubble.
Yes. The real Betty Rubble.
Yes,
the real. The original one.
The OG.
Well, yeah. Dave, thank you so much for being back on How About That Cigar Live, brother. We're so grateful to be able to learn from you and to get some great history about the cigar business and get some insight from you. We get a lot from it. We hope our viewers and listeners do as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Well, for all our viewers and listeners, guys, thank you so much for watching live on Facebook, live on YouTube, and for listening after the fact on the audio podcast. We're so grateful to you guys. You are the best part of How About That Cigar Live. If you have questions for us, be sure to email us on the website, howaboutthatcigar.com. Make sure to follow us on all social media at HBT Cigar. And of course, until we see you guys next time, burn cigars,
not bridges.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Any comments, opinions, viewpoints, or statements presented or uttered by guests on the HBTC podcast, HBTC live video streams, and all other media from HBT Media LLC are solely those of the individual and do not necessarily represent the opinions or viewpoints of How About That Cigar or its parent company, HBT Media LLC, any of our advertising partners, or the premium cigar industry. The primary purpose of How About That Cigar is to entertain and to encourage activity and growth within the community of people who enjoy or want to learn about the enjoyment of premium cigars.